So, Lauren, can you just talk a bit about how you became involved with playing the character of Lucy and finding your way to this role?
Well, I became involved after I did my audition. I know that they were looking for a Canadian for this role, as majority of our cast is Canadian. Um, but I had just worked with BET on something, and they were looking for a dark-skinned girl who could sing. So the casting director was like, "Hey, have you seen Lauren for this role yet?" And then I came in really late in casting, but I only did about 2 auditions. I did my audition, and then I did my screen test, and then I got the part. Been involved ever since.
Congratulations for that. I love the character of Lucy because she's very strong and determined. And looking at your own history in the entertainment industry, I kind of see some similarities between the both of you. Like she's very ambitious. She knows exactly what she wants. She's goal oriented, and she has a plan. She's like, I'm going to be a star. No one is going to stop me from being a star. And for you, I see a lot of parallels in your journey. You're like, I'm going to keep going at this because you've done both film and film and TV, and as well as Broadway. And you've done like stage productions. I was even on The Idol as a singer. So you are a fantastic singer as well. So just talk about finding those similarities with Lucy and how that helps it, and like how your own journey in the industry has helped you to connect with her.
Well, I would say that's one of the only things that Lucy and myself really did have in common was that we are both very ambitious and both have such a want to be a star. I started my journey when I was about 13, and I really wanted a manager and I wanted an agent. And at the time, there was something over here in America called Backstage.com. So what I did was I had my mother get me a subscription. Since 7, I wanted to be an actress. But my mother was like, "You're not going to be able to like go to the bathroom by yourself because people are going to follow you." And I really loved going to the bathroom by myself. So I was like, that's a no. then I'll wait. I don't want to be an actress. But she said, on your 13th birthday, I'll let you be an actress. To her surprise, my 13th birthday comes and I'm like, "Hey, you said that we were going to be doing this." So then I got my subscription to Backstage.com. And I literally wrote to at least 300 agents. And I said, "I'm going to be a star. So you can either be a part of helping me or you can watch it happen." I was 13. Like, what am I doing? I got one response, and that ended up being my first agent. So this is something that I've definitely always wanted, just like Lucy.
That's amazing because I'm sure she probably thought you forget. You were like, "No, it's always been there. I did not forget."
For sure. She definitely thought that I would forget, but surprise.
And for the thing with Lucy, we talked a bit about the similarities, like the ambition and the being goal oriented. And then there's also something else that I personally I wasn't expecting, is how the discussion of colorism is such an integral part to her narrative as a character, because she's a dark-skinned Black woman and she's working at this club, the Stardust, and she's one of the dancers. Like I think the theme would have been ragtime, and she is one of 2 dark-skinned Black women, and the others are lighter skin, and like they're always placed at the back. And I'm like, this is at first it's not obvious, but you like, as I think for a lot of Black women in particular, those who have been subjected to colorism, like you immediately notice, like, I see what's happening here. And then like you just like people just and she has this kind of like this antagonistic relationship with one of the dancers, and she's light skinned, and like she does make comments to Lucy. And for you, like what was it like preparing for those roles? Not necessarily that you would have necessarily had to tap into your own personal experiences, but just like seeing that this is being addressed in a major TV production, because it is honestly something that does not get addressed often in whether it's a Canadian or a Hollywood production.
For sure. I was pretty surprised at how much it did affect me. Colorism has affected me all my life, but it's something that I always swept under the rug, just like I think the Black community has, But there was a moment on set when we all had on all the dancers, we all had on the same outfits. And I realized that the girl who plays Corinne, her name's Juliet, she had some big earrings on. And then I realized all the light-skinned girls had on big earrings. Like they had these really, really beautiful, made earrings for them. And then all the dark-skinned girls had on small ones. Now, this was something that it's part of the role. It's part of the character where they're doing this to highlight. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that we were different, in that moment. And I don't know why that. I mean, obviously, I know why that moment affected me so much. But that was a moment that I kind of had to really self reflect and separate myself because I was upset. I was like, well, why can't we all have? And I went to wardrobe and I was like, hey, can I have some of theirs? And they're like, oh, those are for the A line, just like in how they would do it in the show. And I was like, let me step back. And I had a few moments where I had to separate myself from Lucy because it is very relevant. Colorism since for as long as I can remember, that's something that's always been very relevant in my life. And I was so happy to step into this role where we're facing it head on. I mean, you'll see as the episodes continue, but we just lay it out. And I think it's really important. And I hope that people notice and they self-reflect themselves.
Yeah, I think it's like super important because even though the show is set in 1920 in Montreal, Canada, this is, as we said, like colorism is something that Black women and like Black people have, and even people from other ethnic minorities, because it's something that comes from like many different cultures. It exists all over the world. And
all over the world.
And like it's such an ingrained part of white supremacy and racism and colonialism and colonization, which is something the show does obviously address because it talks about Black people coming from different backgrounds living in Montreal, and they're trying to get ahead, and like they have to face all these obstacles. But there's the racism, but then there's also the colorism for like Lucy within the Black community, and these are all these challenges. And while I was watching the episodes, because we got to screen too, in my head I just kept thinking, Lucy thinks that she's only going to have to face this in the Black community, but I'm like, once she makes it as a star, like she has no idea the kind of challenges she's going to have to face from white people, because I've noticed so far, like most of her interactions are mostly with Black people. Mm-hmm. Right. And she only has interactions with one white person. And I'm like, it will be so interesting to see how that plays out for the rest of the season, because like colorism from Black people and colorism from white people, like, are not the same.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't even know. I don't want to spoil anything, but like we had some scenes, I think they got cut, but we did have some moments where, we did run into some. See, I feel like I need Winston here to like stop me. But like we did have some moments where we addressed even the racism aspect of that as well, and not just that, but how when you are dating somebody, when you're in an interracial relationship, there's a lot of things they don't know. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that they don't recognize until they are dating someone Black, and they're like, oh crap, this is real. Until they've never had to deal with that, and we kind of acknowledge that in one moment. I don't know if it's cut out, who knows, but sorry if that's a spoiler, Winston, if you end up watching.
And so we talked about. So I'm gonna get back to this a bit, but I think what I want to talk about next is gonna tie into this, because I mentioned that there is this white man that she has interactions with, a relationship with, but then there's also this Black character, Zeke, and they have this beautiful moment, and it happens after this extreme moment of sadness where he's lost a friend and he's grieving and he has no one to turn to, and he comes to the Stardust and he sees Lucy, and like she just starts to sing, and like they just start to stand and hug, and I'm just like, we always talk about Black love. I'm like, yes, give me all the Black love. Right? So like talk a bit about that scene and like get into, because this is also one of the few times, as I said, I only saw episode 1 and 2, where we get to see Lucy be vulnerable, whereas when she's with the other dancers, I think she's kind of on her guard because she has to watch what she says, because she knows that Corinne is trying to like prevent her from moving forward. But with Zeke, she gets to be open and comfortable and sing, and like we hear how beautiful your voice is and like how comfortable she feels with him.
Yeah, Zeke is Lucy's bestie. That's one of the few solid people in her life. I mean, as you go on, you'll see Lucy's had a really hard life, and the one consistent good spot has been her friendship with Zeke. And I think in that moment she realized, because they have a playful relationship, and in that moment I think she realized that her friend really needed her. And I guess that was the best way to comfort, not to ask too much. She knows what's wrong, so it's not to be like, well, what's wrong, drill me, tell me what's going on, do we need to hug, but in that moment it's like, let's just share a moment. We don't even need to talk about it. we can just dance, hold each other, and you can cry on my forehead. And you know what? That was one of the last scenes that we shot, and him and me are also really close. So that was definitely an emotional day in general, shooting that, which I think came out on camera.
Yeah, I think it's important to have these kind of moments because, like, for Lucy, she, as I said, she's always like guarded when she's in the background, right? When they're prepping for choreography, when they're prepping to go up on stage and perform, she's always guarded because she knows that she is not liked. She knows that she's not appreciated. She's like knows that even amongst other Black women, her position is not safe. And then even once she goes onto the performing floor, she's performing for these people. Like a lot of them are white men who don't love her for being who she is. They just love the persona. They just love the persona, the performer, the body. But so I think it's important that we do get these scenes of vulnerability between her and Zeke. And hopefully we get to see that with her and other Black women too. I'm thinking maybe Marlene, because I would love to see some Black women friendship. Because I'm like, come on, ladies.
Right. You know what? You just keep watching, because there's some tough moments, but there are some beautiful moments where we reconcile a lot of things. So hopefully the audience takes well to that, because I know I needed them after watching the whole story, after playing out the whole story. I needed some of those, Black women need to come back together moments. So
yeah, we're like,
we get them. Yeah,
sisterhood. And like speaking about that, like one of the last scenes, and this is the one that it kind of legit, I'm not even like being hyperbolic, like it made me kind of catch my breath because it took me back to when I was younger, where she's at the dressing table and she has the can of the bleaching cream. And I remember when I was in secondary school, like I'm from Barbados, when I was in secondary school, we had this soap called Tura. And it's legit soap for washing white school clothes. Like this is the soap we would use to wash our clothes, but girls were using it to wash our faces because it has Lila. Lila is a bleaching agent. And like we would wash our faces just to like get clearer, get rid of the acne and just like to be clear. And like that's like, so when I'm seeing with that scene, I'm just like, that took me back. And I would buy like skin products like to bleach my skin. And people say, oh, you can't bleach your skin. I'm like, we tried. Like, try to lighten your skin. And I'm just like,
oh yeah, no, that moment was heartbreaking. That was that was definitely a sad one to shoot, when I realized what it was. I grew up with everything in my life being Black. Mm-hmm. So Santa was Black, Jesus was Black. I went to a Black church where they sang opera. Like it was like my Black experience was I think maybe different from some others, but like everything that I knew was Black, and the most successful people in my life were Black. And I thought that was how everybody else was doing it. Like I thought that for everybody else, I thought that in Asian communities, their Jesus was Asian. Like I thought that like that was how everybody else was doing it. Because I would go over to other people's houses and I would see, white paintings and all that. Every painting in my house was Black. So I just figured whoever you are, the world was shaped to you. And even like, I remember being teased in school for having Black gums, and my mother opening a magazine and showing me different traits that like different features that people had, and how they would love to have what I naturally have. And she was like, you see these cheekbones, like this person, they got this done, or like they did this, or they're filling their lips. So everything that you're getting made fun of, somebody's artificially trying to do that. So you're perfect, how you are, your dark skin. And then she let me know, even with my complexion, that God did that for a reason. So even if someone else didn't like it, that means that they have a problem with God, not me, and they're not appreciating what God did. So I grew up, yes, experiencing colorism, but also really accepting that if you didn't like what God did, then you were just kind of ignorant, and you had to take that up with him, so it always breaks my heart to see that someone would even want to bleach their skin. I ran into people who hated their complexion when I was in high school. And that was the first time really that I had seen somebody not like, yes, you get irritated and heartbroken with all the names people call you, for being dark, but to see that people actually like wanted to change it. I remember girls having like eraser marks from trying to like erase their skin. And that just broke my heart. And all I think is like, I'm going to have a daughter someday and I want her to be dark. I want her to be brown, and I'm already thinking now, like, how can I do what my mother did so that if of everything she wants to change, she never wants to change her skin color.
No, I relate to that so much, like, because it took me years to come to that place, because I said, like, when I was in school and I grew up in the Caribbean, I grew up in Barbados, like the school I went to, like mostly Black girls, but even still like on an island that is predominantly Black, like we still have all these struggles and like racism and that, and still exists there because we have a white population. And like it was a plantocracy, right? It was a place where Black people were enslaved, and so much of our people are descendants of those slaves. So like we still have these systems of oppression to break away from. We still have the colorism that we had to get away from because we were told that only Black people who looked a certain way were desirable, or wanted and needed. And then the other people who were like considered like darker were like, I was legit told by guys and other people, like, you're pretty for a Black girl. And they tell you that, and like they think it's a compliment. I'm like, no, it's not a compliment. Like my hair, I would tell you have really nice hair.
It's just everything that lets you know. It's everything that lets you know you're less than.
Yeah, right. And they say so casually. And the thing with this series, I was especially for, like I mentioned at the beginning, is because this is one of the very few Canadian shows that does feature an almost all Black cast. Because there was another show, I can't remember the name, but it was like years ago, right? And like I think this is a show that I think is, like, I don't even want to use the word timely, but it's very, very necessary, because like we do need to see these kind of stories, especially for, I think, with Canadian history. Like a lot of people don't understand like how racism operates in Canada. Like this, as I said, set in 1920.
I didn't. I learned a lot from filming this. I didn't know much about Canada and the Canadian history and how much it tied into to American Black history.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking about American Black history, one of the executive producers is Alfre Woodard, and like she's like legit a legend for a lot of Black women. So like, what was it like for you working with her and seeing, like, because she has the history of working in Hollywood and in the film industry, and she's bringing that to not only as an executive producer, but also as an actress. Like she's, I think, as her character, I'm like, yeah, show us that you can be sexy at any age, come through. But like,
and she looks phenomenal. She looks great. Yes, she is aging like wine, okay? But I will say Alfre is wonderful. And she's there if you need to ask her about anything random in this industry that people wouldn't think about. Like, how do you make a relationship work in this industry? How do you keep your head above water? How do you keep working? Like, she will answer any of it with grace and with love. And like, I fell in love with Alfre because in Canada, you had to, well, at the beginning, like when we were filming, we had to quarantine a lot. So we were doing our 14 days and she was doing them right next door to me. And she's a stickler for the rules. So I'm thinking like, let's hang out, but she's like, But we would go to each other's balconies. So we would go to our balcony and, just talk across the balcony. And it was the absolute cutest thing. And then she would also leave food for me outside my door. Like whenever she cooked, she would go and like leave it outside my door for me to eat. And then I started doing that to her. And then I felt like we were kind of having like kindness wars of like who could take care of each other better while we were quarantined. It was so cute. She was so sweet. I have so many cute videos of her in my phone. She's wild too. Like I loved everything about her. And it's so great to meet actresses, especially who've had longevity, who are actually really sweet and like good people and like will act like your mom. Like it's so great. It's so inspirational to see that people are humble, especially at her level.
Yeah, and can you tell me about working with the show? I'm here playing at my notes, so forgive me. Working with the showrunners for this series, because firstly, we talked about how you got your role, but what was your first thought when you read the script? Like, what was the first thing that occurred to you when you read the script?
When I first read the script, I wait until the table reads. to actually read the whole script. I'll read my parts, but then I want to wait until it plays out. You know, I don't want to imagine. I want to imagine, but I want to hear it with everybody. You know, so I waited until the table read to actually fully get the first episode in. And I thought it was so lovely. You know, we went through every single episode. And by the end, I was like gripping my heart because there were so many moments when I was like, oh, this is going to be so beautiful. But I very much so underestimated how beautiful it was actually going to be. I mean, it's shot like a movie, which I absolutely loved. I mean, there were sometimes we were shooting some scenes and I was like catching my breath even while we were there. I was like, oh, this is so gorgeous. You know, we actually had like horses and cars, and the way that Jordan did the lighting, I was in awe every day.
No, it is very cinematic. I think one of the very first scenes is the scenes with the dancers, with you guys, and then it's juxtaposed with the women doing praise and worship in the church.
You didn't even get the full. We had a full dance number, and it was stunning. I'm wanting every day for them to put it in there. Like it was a full like Broadway level production, and it was magical shooting it. Like it was like I watching it back, I was like, okay, you know, they did that. And you know, I've watched the screener with my mother. She loved it. But when you were actually there and saw like that full dance number, it was so delicious. It was so yeah.
No, I loved it. I loved all the colors and the costumes, and I just love how they juxtaposed it with the women in the church, because it was just like how Black, to me, it was like how Black people and Black women, we celebrate. We're like, no matter how we're praising, we're doing it in dance, right? So like that's another thing with the show. It shows like Black culture and how we work together and how we help each other. Like, you know, like Marlene taking medication to Faye and like talking to her friends, and like just to me, that's Black culture.
No, I one of my favorite things about this show is that I think it shows a different side of representation. I think any Black art helps for representation. It helps to change this narrative of like Black can only be a certain way. You know, growing up, I heard like, oh, you don't talk Black, you don't like whatever, you know, and I love that in this show, it's just its own type of Black. And I think the more representation we have, the more it shows like, you know, Black is not just one thing. Black is not just one thing. Black is so much. It's so many different cultures. It's a whole lifestyle, you know, being Black. And I love that we show Black life in this. You know, it's not just like white people did this to us. This is just white people, but we get to see Black people in the house, Black people like in the club, Black people like loving each other, Black love, Black relationships, you know, like we see such a wide variety of Black life in this, how Black people talk. We have different accents in this. And I love that. I love that we have the Caribbean flair in there. And like, they really fought to make sure that they kept in there how Caribbeans go in and out with their accent. You know, like when they get upset, that accent is coming out. And then, you know, when it's not, you know, they can stay, you know, in the regular side of an accent, you know, and then it goes like deep into it. And they really fought to keep that in there. And I love that. It's so authentic to the different sides of Black culture.
So just before we wrap up, like, what is like you've done this show and like you know what's going to happen. Well, like, how excited are you to see people's reactions to this, not only to the whole story, but for your character in particular? I personally related up to Lucy a lot. So like for you, like how excited are you?
Look, I just want people to love this. I want people to be addicted. Like I want people to not be able to wait for the next episode because they just need to know what happens. Yeah. With my character, I want people to relate. I want people to relate to the colorism side of it. I want people to self-reflect. I want people to love the dancing and the acting. I pray this leads to 1 million more roles. I just want people to love Lucy. You know, you know, it's so weird too. When I first, like before I went into this audition, my mother was like, I want you to play Lucy, like from I Love Lucy, you know, Lucille Ball. She was like, I want you to play Lucy. And I want to be able to say, I love Lucy. And then I booked a character right after that named Lucy. And she gets to say that she loves Lucy. That's just a random, you know, moment I'm just realizing right now. But still, I want people to love Lucy. I want people to be inspired. I want people to care. I want people to love it. That's my prayer. I pray every day that people love this. We put so much into this. We worked so hard. We put so much love into all of these characters. We love each other. And I just pray that people do too.
I'm sure they will. I personally did. I love all the different characters and all the different stories. And I love Lucy because as I said, I saw so much of myself in her. And I want
I love
the
that.
best for her. I'm like, yes, girl, you go be a star. We want your name in lights, as they would say.
I feel like Zeke is going to be a lot of people's favorite character, but I want me to be a lot of people's favorite character. Me.